Welcome to episode 184 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Tony Germinario. He just did a low-budget action thriller film called Bad Frank, and we talked through his entire process for writing the film, directing the film, getting the film funded, and producing it. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 184. I just want to mention a free webinar that I'm doing on Wednesday, August 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's called How to Effectively Market Your Screenplay and Sell It. I'm going to go through all the various online channels that are available to screenwriters and give you my unfiltered opinion of them. I get questions all the time about the Blacklist, about Inktip, about various screenwriting contests. So in this free webinar, I'm going to talk about my experience with these various services. Again, this webinar is completely free. Don't worry if you can't make it to the live event. I'll be recording this event, so if you sign up, you'll get a link to the recorded event after it happens. To sign up, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar, and the word free webinar is all lowercase and all one word. Of course, I will link to this in the show notes as well. Also, if you're already on my email list, you don't need to register for the webinar. I will be sending out all of the information to everyone who is on my email list already. So once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar. I'm going away for most of July, so I've pre-recorded a bunch of episodes, so I don't have any real updates on my low-budget film, The Pinch. But I do want to mention a live webinar that I'm going to be doing in August where I will go through all the steps to producing a micro-budget feature film. The webinar is called, of all things, The Pinch, Producing a Micro-Budget Feature Film. I'm going to do this online webinar on Wednesday, August 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to charge a small fee to attend, but if you're looking to produce your own micro-budget film, I think you'll get tremendous value out of this. I'm going to go through every aspect of production, how to write the micro-budget feature film script, how to raise money for the project, how to do pre-production, production, and every aspect of post-production. As I close in on completion of my own micro-budget feature film, I think this is a great time to do this webinar as everything is fresh in my mind. I'll be answering any and all questions you have about this process. I'm going to be going through my own budget line by line so you can get a first-hand look at exactly where I spent my money. If this sounds like something that you might like to learn more about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. And of course, I will link to it in the show notes as well. So now let's get into the main segment. Today, I'm interviewing writer-director Tony Germinario. Here is the interview. Welcome, Tony, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So to start out, maybe you can give us a little overview of your background, kind of where did you grow up and how did you get into the entertainment business?
Sure. Well, I actually grew up in New Jersey, so I was born and bred. Went to college up in Connecticut at Fairfield University. And I took my first screenwriting course there. Didn't go well, so I actually made my way into music. I was actually a musician for a number of years. So I played in a touring band that toured all over New York City and the Northeast, out in LA and Vegas. Never quite made it. But as I started getting a little older and people started settling down a little bit, I still needed that creative outlet. So I started making my way back into screenwriting and filmmaking. So a number of years ago, I wrote a script that was terrible. And then I wrote another one that wasn't as terrible, and they slowly progressed and got a little bit better. And eventually one day I was kind of trolling websites looking for opportunities, and I came across someone who said, hey, we have the idea, and we're looking for someone to write the screenplay for us. So it was a gentleman by the name of Choice Skinner. He's on the West Coast out in LA, but he's a New York guy. So we hit it off right away. actually hired me to write a script, all of $100. So at that point, I was a professional screenwriter, so I was pumped. But the script never really got anywhere. It's sitting on somebody's desk somewhere out in Hollywood. But we really hit it off. So he was actually an acting coach as well. Went to one of his acting classes, which I'd never been to before, and it just totally blew me away. I've never seen the process and what actors go through, and how far they're willing to go as part of the process. So I came out of there, and on my plane ride back to New Jersey, I wrote 2 short scripts. I sent it over to him. I said, hey, if you ever want to use this with your class, feel free. And Choice called me as soon as he read them. He said, these are great. We should make them. I said, what are you talking about? I'm just a screenwriter. I don't know how to make movies. He said, we'd come up with a little bit of scratch, and we'll film them all in one weekend. So we did that, and they did pretty well on some festivals that we were in. Did another short film after that that did really well, and then we actually did a feature film that Choice directed. And then after seeing what Choice did, I decided, you know what, I want to keep writing, but I want to direct one myself and see how I can do at it. And there we are with Bad Frank. So Bad Frank was actually the first film I directed.
Okay, perfect. And so the movie that this Choice directed and you wrote, was that Wingman Inc.? Because that was your other...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Wingman Inc. So basically, that was a romantic comedy, which is a lot different than Bad Frank. Mm-hmm. Wingman Inc. was basically a professional wingman falls in love with a professional cockblocker. So, kind of tongue-in-cheek, very funny. Filmed it out in LA with some great actors. Came out really good. Very happy with the way it came out. But I had the itch to direct. After seeing the process and kind of learning a bit about it, I thought I could do something a little smaller but just as effective. Now in Los Angeles, there were some challenges around cost and how you do things, and I was able to film Bad Frank in New Jersey for next to nothing. So our entire budget was $80,000. So we had to do things really quick and really efficiently, and that it worked out really good.
Yeah, perfect. And I just want to touch this. You said you were trolling the internet where you met this fellow Choice. Maybe you can elaborate on that. I know there's going to be people saying, well, gee, how can I meet someone like Choice, to help me with my career? So maybe you can give some specifics on that. Was it a specific site? Just exactly how did you find him?
Yeah, you know what? It was, gosh, it's almost 8 or 9 years ago. I don't remember the site. It might have been, I think there's a forum or a website, Independent Screenwriters or something like that. And that might have been where I found him. But there's plenty out there. If you just do a search on, screenwriting opportunities or things like that, I'm sure you'll find it, and many others along with it. There are plenty out there. So, any screenwriters that are out there, I would encourage them to go look out there, because, there's a lot of people that have ideas but just don't have either the time or the resources to go write it themselves. So there's always good opportunities out there.
I see. So this Choice, he put like some sort of a thread up saying, hey, I have this idea for a script. I need someone to write it. And then you saw it and said, hey, I'm a writer. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, and I sent him some samples. I wasn't the immediate selection. He went through a whole process. So he went through a couple different rounds. We actually spoke on the phone to talk about how it would develop the script, how it would develop the characters, and I was fortunate that it worked out.
Yeah. And I wonder if just for a moment you can talk about that process of working with someone. Obviously, $100 is so little as to almost be no pay. How did that process go? Were you happy with it? Sounds like the main thing you did was cement your relationship with Choice. But maybe you can talk about that. And I know as a writer myself, I get very disappointed. You put a lot of time and energy into these projects, and the reality is most of the scripts you write will never see the light of day, and it's very disappointing. And I would say, as someone going into screenwriting, they don't fully understand this, and it's still, even to this day, it's very disappointing when you spend a lot of time on something and it basically, as you say, ends up on someone's shelf. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, screenwriting ain't easy, right? Like you said, there's probably, for every script that gets made, there's probably 1,000 or maybe even 10,000 that don't get made, right? So you have to go into it expecting that, hey, I might not make it, but I'm going to get everything I got, right? But that said, you got to give it everything you got. If you really want to do it, you have to put maximum effort into it. You can't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to write a draft and it's going to be great and immediately get picked up, because that's not the way it works, right? It takes a lot of elbow grease, takes a lot of time and energy in order to do that. When I worked with Choice, we spent a lot of time going back and forth developing the script. We spent, countless hours on Skype and on the phone just developing it. I wrote a draft, needed to make some changes and edits, wrote another draft, went back again, wrote another draft. And you know what? Yeah, it was a little frustrating that it's never gotten made. I actually think it's a pretty good script. But for me, it wasn't really only about that one script. It was about the relationships that you made and the people that you run into, right? So, I was able to meet a whole bunch of people that are still part of my team today, right? People that I consider, not my team really, but, people that I consider on my team that are in my corner and people that I want to work with. So to me, that was really important because, like I said, not every script is going to get made. So if you're working on a script, do whatever you can to work with other people or make them part of the process, because you never know when they might come back and want you for something else. Hey, this script didn't work out, but I want to hire you for this. Or, I remember this guy wrote this 5 years ago and he was fantastic to work with. So he's on the next project that I want. You never know when that's going to happen. I'm starting to get people reaching out to me now because, they're hearing about what I'm doing on this and other things. And, it's when you have a little bit of success, people want to be part of that. And I think it's also part of how you work with people, right? If you're a pain in the ass to work with, no one's going to work with you again. And Hollywood can be a very lonely place like that. If you make $100 million films, and yeah, you can do that. But if you're making $100 films, then you got to be the most easy guy to work with on the planet. You got to be very efficient in the way you do things, and then things will open up for you.
Yeah. So sound advice for sure. So let's dig into Bad Frank. That's your latest film.
Sure.
You wrote it, also directed it. Maybe to start out, you can kind of just tell us where this idea came from. What was sort of the kernel of the idea, and how did that idea develop?
Sure. It's kind of funny. So, Wingman Inc. was a romantic comedy, and Bad Frank is the antithesis of a romantic comedy. It's kind of a dark thriller. And when I first showed it to some friends, they basically said, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" Because it's really different from my normal personality. And maybe that was, the reason behind that was, you get rid of that dark, dirty piece of your personality so it doesn't come out. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but I've been asked this question before, and one of the best answer I have is I woke up one night, and I don't usually remember dreams at all. I don't know if I'm kind of unique in that way, but I almost never have any recollection of any dreams that I have at all. I woke up in the middle of the night one night. I just had this idea about a kidnap thriller. I wanted, major scenes around just the guy who kidnapped a girl and the two of them and what they're going through in the basement, right? So that's where the original script really was. So Kevin Interdonato, who's the star of the film, was Bad Frank. I worked with him before. So he was in Wingman Inc. We did a short film together. I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'd love for you to be Bad Frank." And he read the script and, he loved the concept. And he's like, I think we should think about doing some of this and some of that. So, with Kevin's help, we really reshaped the script, right? It became eventually what you see on screen. And Russ Russo was another co-writer, helped with some of the scenes as well. But, that's really where it came from. It was just this, I wanted to come up with something that was just totally different. And I guess maybe subconsciously I was thinking about that idea is, let me do something completely different. And then boom, I just woke up with it. And that's kind of where it came from. Okay.
And maybe you can just give us a quick pitch or log line for the film.
Sure. So Bad Frank is about a guy who has impulse control disorder, and he's ruined all his relationships in his life. But now that he's a little bit older, he's trying to go back and repair all those relationships. But just as he's about to do that with his, with his wife in hand and with repair relationships with his father, his old boss comes back and everything just goes to hell from there.
Okay. So let's talk about your writing process a little bit. How much time do you spend preparing, doing an outline, mulling things over, versus how much time do you spend actually in final draft just cranking out script pages?
It changes per script. I mean, Bad Frank was a little bit unique because I had the original script done. We kind of redid it. I try and work from an outline where I'll get the initial genesis of an idea, and then I'll just try and lay out my acts. What do I want to have happen in the first act? What's the major change that's going to propel me into act two? How am I going to get to the conclusion? So I do try and set myself up with an outline and then set up, the key points that are going to be there along the way. And, but sometimes if I come up with a good scene, I'll write the entire scene out and just kind of, put that on the side until I know where I'm going to place it. Because a lot of times as you start developing the character, the character gets in your head, right? So I have a new project that I'm working on that the character, it's actually a female character that I've been developing with another actress, but the character was in my head and I just kept having to write down dialogue and scenes, even though, I didn't have the entire outline laid out. I knew some of the scenes that were going to be in there and just started writing them right away. Because, once you kind of feel the juices, you don't want to cut it off. Mm-hmm. So I went out and did that. Then I'd go back to the overall outline later.
Okay, perfect. And when you get into a flow of things, like once you start actually writing, what does your day look like when you're in the writing? Do you have other projects you're working on? You spend 2 hours? Do you spend a full 8 or 10 hours? Or some writers spend 18 hours, once they get into the flow of things. What does your actual writing days look like?
Oh, well, I wish I had that time. Unfortunately, I still have a full-time job. Okay. So writing for me takes place anytime I have a possible moment. So I'm usually writing from about 9 o'clock at night till about 12 or 1 in the morning, and on the weekends. If I'm on a plane, sometimes I'll actually do that as well. But any time and every time I have free moments, that's when I'm actually writing. The hard part is during the day when I have all these ideas, because you never really turn it off. The ideas are always there. It's kind of, all right, I got a great idea here. I got to remember that. I'm just going to jot it down. I can't really flesh it out completely now. I got to remember that 9 o'clock at night. So you kind of have to, regenerate that whole, all right, I was thinking about this at that time and this was where I was. And all right, I got to get back in that mindset so I can get the whole recollection of where I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just so I think this is an interesting question because there's a lot of people listening to this that probably also have full-time jobs. And I'm always curious what kind of production someone can do while they're doing a full-time job. How many scripts per year do you typically finish? Feature scripts per year do you think is a good goal for you, or what do you actually accomplish even while still working another job?
That's a great question. I think I could probably do 2 a year. I'm a little bit unique because I'm not, Bad Frank, I made it knowing, we wrote it knowing we were going to make the film, right? So it's not like I was writing multiple scripts hoping one of them was going to hit. Mm-hmm. So the current script that I wrote, I knew we were making the film. So I wasn't focusing on other scripts. I've got a bunch of other scripts that are in partial development. But once I knew that this was happening, my primary focus was here. So for the most part, over the last year or so, I've had a couple other projects that I've done a little bit here and there. I'm actually co-writing with a couple of other people. They've been doing some work. I've been doing some work. But, over the last year, I'd say I have 1 complete script and probably 3, maybe 4 others that are in various stages of completion.
Yeah. Let's talk about the rewriting process. And you kind of described Bad Frank a little bit, working with the actors. So we can be specific to Bad Frank, but even just in general on some of these other projects, how do you know when your script is ready to start showing to other people? When does that rough draft become something that's polished enough that you can start to get notes back?
I have a couple people that I really trust. And, after the first draft, I'll never show to anybody for the most part. Usually the second draft is when I'll go to the trusted people that, there's like 2 or 3 people that I really trust. I'll have them read it. And I can tell from their reaction whether or not it's really ready. And when I say ready, a script's never done, right? It's kind of, I'm always tweaking, always making changes. So when I say ready, I mean it's ready that I can show it to people outside of my comfort circle. And the people that I trust, it's not like they'll say, man, this is shit, you shouldn't show this to anybody. But I could tell from the reaction, like, yeah, there's a couple things you might want to work on, then I know it's not ready yet, right? But if they say, man, this is really good, you should think, you might maybe tweak here, a tweak there. But if it's all minor stuff, then I know I'm pretty solid and it's time to, kind of expand the breath a little bit.
Who are these 2 or 3 trusted readers that you send it to? And we don't need names, but
their names cannot be revealed.
Yeah, but just like, what type of people are they? Are they people in the industry? Are they people not in the industry? And how did you maybe meet those people? Again, we don't need specific names, but just in general, kind of the type of people they are.
I mean, one of them is not industry at all. It's just someone that I really trust, and we've been, friends forever. And it's just they know the process, and they know exactly what is a good story and what's not a good story. And then there's a couple people that are in the industry that I share the script with. I mean, they're not big industry names or anything like that, but they're people that I know what they're doing. Being in New Jersey, it's not like I have a ton of contacts out west or in high places, but I know some people that I really trust. There's a couple people that are important to me, just more as people than industry people. And, those are kind of the people I gravitate towards. When you're in New Jersey and you don't have that many industry contacts, when you have some people that you can really trust, those are people you kind of hang on to.
Yeah. So I'm curious with this particular project, how did you approach sort of genre? You're calling it sort of a dark thriller, but was there any sort of talking to distributors or talking to producers saying, well, this is a film that we think we can ultimately sell? Like, what was sort of in your mindset of making this? It was just purely like, this is the best idea I have right now, so that's where I'm going. Or were there some sort of, talking to producers, talking to distributors, and trying to figure out something that would actually, have a place in the market?
I think originally when we wrote the script, we were kind of thinking that, kind of a dark psychological type thriller was the genre we were targeting specifically. When I came up with the kidnapped idea, there wasn't really much other place we could go, right? But we signed on with Lotus Entertainment fairly early on. Actually, they came on even before the film was made, right? They saw the script, liked it. A gal by the name of Daniel Brandt came on board and said, hey, listen, we want Lotus to be a part of this, which was great. Having them behind us has been very beneficial. Once we started getting ready to film it, from a marketing perspective, we did look at, this is extremely low budget, so we know we don't have a lot of funds that we can really place towards name actors. But we're very fortunate to get a Tom Sizemore. We're very fortunate to get Brian O'Halloran from Clerks and, former world champ boxer Ray Boom Boom Mancini, right? I mean, those are people you probably don't get on an $80K budget. But we specifically wrote those parts a little smaller, so we wouldn't have, big outlays of money, but you can get the marketability of having those people in the film. So not only did they do fantastic performances, but, just having them associated with the film gave us a level of credibility that you don't typically get on this type of film. So I think that was more of how we started thinking from, a marketing or what we were targeting perspective.
Yeah. And what kind of a company is Lotus? Are they a distributor? Are they a production company? Like, what was their help?
They're a sales agent.
Okay, sales agent. Okay. And were you having conversations with them, like some of the cast that you were bringing on? Were you having those conversations with them saying, hey, will this person help our, sales potential?
Yeah, they were very helpful in that regard. So, we kind of said, hey, we know someone who knows Tom Sizemore. Is that good for us? Like, yes, that helps with your international sales. Right. So, when you're making a film, there's so many things that come into perspective. For me, number one, I want to make the quality film. But number two, you also have to think, well, if I'm going to spend X amount of dollars for this particular actor, I hope that they can bring X amount of dollars back. Mm-hmm. Right. And, you do have somewhat of a business perspective, especially since I was wearing a hat not only of a director and writer, but also, the executive producer of the film. So I had to think of all those different perspectives, right? So that Lotus was very helpful in that regard, that they'd say, okay, that's a good name. That's someone, they bring value to the film for you.
Okay. And how did you meet the folks at Lotus, this Daniel?
Kevin actually met them. So Kevin, he's a hustler and a grinder. So he's all over the place, and he had met Daniel when he was at a previous company. And he was just coming over to Lotus at the time. And, I met Daniel. We gave him a copy of the script. He loved it, really wanted to be, really part of something that was, even though it's a smaller film budget-wise, anyone who looks at it would never think we spent that little amount of money on it. I mean, the quality of this film, I think, is phenomenal, which has been shown in the amount of, festival wins that we've had. And, we've got distribution through Gravitas, which is great. We're just about to come out on a full release in July. So, I mean, it's been blowing up really. And to me, that just speaks volumes to not only the level of talent that we had in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well.
yeah, sure. So let's talk about sort of the next step. You have a script. It sounds like you're talking with Lotus. You're getting your cast. How did you go about raising the $80,000?
Well, I spoke to my wife and I said, honey, we got a little nest egg. I think this is a good investment. So that's as far as the conversation went. I have a very understanding wife, and we were able to pull it together ourselves. And most of the money anyway. We had a couple people that put a little bit of money in, but that was very it. So we were very fortunate, and that's part of the reason why the budget was so small. I mean, if you saw the crew that we had on the film, it was crazy what we were able to accomplish. We had a couple of PAs, we had 3 camera guys, 1 sound guy, and 2 producers, and that was it. So it was as bare bones as you get, but everyone was there for one purpose, which was to make a great film. And you'd be surprised what you can accomplish when you have, such a dedicated and resourceful team together. Mm-hmm. So that's why anyone who writes a script, don't necessarily wait around for, Hollywood to come and pick it up. Go out and make it yourselves, because at the end of the day, you probably have a better chance of, realizing your vision than anyone else can.
Yeah, yeah. Just out of curiosity, what kind of camera did you guys use?
We shot it on the Red.
And then where did you find your cinematographer?
He's someone that Russ Russo had worked with before.
Okay.
So we reached out to him and said, hey, we're doing a kind of a micro budget film here, but we really love your work. We'd love for you to be part of it. And we had a couple of good conversations with him. He jumped on board, and man, they did a fantastic job. I mean, the camera work that these guys did for what we had was unbelievable. I was at a festival recently, and the guy still swears up and down there's no way we spent that little money in the budget. He said we had to have spent at least $1 million. Huh. I said, oh, well, no, but I appreciate that. That makes us feel really good as filmmakers.
Yeah, yeah. How did you hook up with Gravitas?
Through Lotus.
Okay.
So Lotus actually had that relationship, and they really liked the film. And they came on board, and they've been great. We've had a really good relationship with those guys so far. They're just about really start pushing the film now, because we're about just a little less than a month away from the official release. Mm-hmm. We're on pre-sale and all those sort of things right now on iTunes. So we're excited. I can't wait, because we still haven't officially released our trailer, so we're waiting to get that out there. And we think that people are going to be really excited, because it's pretty sick and demented, so we like it.
Perfect. So what's next for you after Bad Frank?
Actually, in a little less than 2 months, I'm starting my next project. So we've got the script in place. We've got the lead actress in place. It's a film called The Price for Silence, and very similar to Bad Frank. It's going to be kind of a dark thriller. It's a rape revenge story. So we've got we're about to bring on a couple of very interesting cast members. So I think the great thing about this is Bad Frank has allowed me to kind of step my game up a little bit, bring a little bit more into the project. So the visibility of Bad Frank has been great, and whoever really likes Bad Frank, I wanted to make sure we made something else, the next one, that they're really going to gravitate towards as well. So I'm really excited to kind of get this started and let people start seeing what we're doing next.
Perfect. And when you're done with that movie, we'll have to have you back on, and we can talk about that one.
Oh, absolutely.
So how can people see Bad Frank? Maybe you can just tell us what the release schedule's like.
Sure. So it's right now, it's out there for pre-order on iTunes. So if you go to iTunes and just look up Bad Frank, you'll find it easily there, and just click pre-order, and it'll be magically appear on your laptop or on your iTunes on July 4th. It's also available on Amazon, and pretty soon it'll be on all the other platforms as well. Amazon is on DVD right now, DVD and Blu-ray.
Okay, perfect. So what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, you can give us that now. I round everything up, put it in the show notes so people can just click over, but if you give us those handles now, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, awesome. So, the movie is Bad Frank Movie, so we're on Twitter for Bad Frank Movie. Personally, I have Tony Germ, so TonyGerm. That's my Twitter account. It's my Instagram account. It's my Facebook account. So I think just about any social media account, if you go to Tony Germ, you'll see me.
Okay, perfect. So as I said, I'll round all that up, put it in the show notes, and allow people to click over to it. Tony, great interview. Congratulations on this film, and the best of luck on your next film. Thanks for coming on and talking with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. This was great. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
Bye. Just want to mention two things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit one logline per newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, I have around 400 producers who have signed up to receive it. These producers are hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I've partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to produce, to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. Producers are looking for shorts, features, TV and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects that these producers are looking for, and these leads are exclusive to our partner and SYS Select members. To sign up, go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Aaron B. Kuntz. He just did a low-budget horror thriller script called Camera Obscura. He's got a great story, which I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. He had a career working outside the film industry and just decided to walk away from that career and pursue his passion as a filmmaker. So we talk about that transition as well as digging into the specifics of his new project. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.